Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Boss, with a two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. I know last week we did a lot of WrestleMania talk without the WrestleMania. Unlike many people, I went into Monday happy. Apparently, there were some issues with The Rock not showing up and a little bit of a letdown in the main event. I just know about it in the abstract, but I'm feeling good. But before we move away from WrestleMania, John, do you want to know about the collective?
Yes, we definitely need to know about that. Not only the collective itself, but I want to know the numbers. Let's drill deep and let's see who succeeded, who didn't, what was good, what was bad, and how did they fare, with ticket wise.
Yeah, so I spent a fair amount of my lunch or break time on on this and kind of a long form piece. So if it sounds like I'm reading it a little bit, I might be, but helps to give me structure. So let's put the headline out there right now. My theory is that the collective attendance reaches 10,000 people at the Palms. So it was a challenging WrestleMania week, of course, overrun by a number of shows as we covered, in depth. But as we also noticed, brands like New Japan, Ring of Honor, and AAA, which we'll get into a little bit later, have stopped running the weekend for a variety of reasons. Game Changer Wrestling, also TNA, have remained firm in maximizing the weekend. So just to put GCW running the Palms in perspective, the Palms has more seats than the Hammerstein Ballroom. And of course, they ran it multiple times. So it ended up being 4 nights, although it seemed like it was going to be 3. So the first night, Wednesday night, and I won't be doing it like in a linear way, but just to get those two out of the way first, Dragon Gate. So as we talked about, this had been planned for a more modest ballroom. And they actually had sold out the reserved seats, and it was just GA available. Once they moved to the big room, then people could basically sit, I'd imagine, where they wanted, as long as it wasn't in those first few reserve rows, which I think was about 4 or 5. Now, in understanding the power of the collective, we have some comparison for different shows. So Dragon Gate, when it was later presented by Pro Wrestling Revolution, it was on a easier day to draw, but more competition. But that had a much slower trajectory with front row tickets remaining even a couple days out and more than tickets available in the second row and beyond. ID tournament, I think we covered that pretty extensively last time. Obviously, a very weak attendance for that, kind of in line with FSW's Friday leg of the tournament, which didn't do as well. So in running the numbers for the other shows, originally I had a comparison point of WrestleTix, because I figured WrestleTix wasn't going to be doing a post look at ticket sales. But then it just popped up right before we were recording, but I didn't fully acclimate to that. But in looking at it quickly, it pretty much aligned with what Brett Lauderdale shared with me. I reached out to him over text message, and he was just giving me the numbers. I know sometimes when it's a promoter, people are concerned and so on, and they'd rather lean on WrestleTix, which makes sense because it counts the maps, although, it depends when tickets stop being counted. But pretty much from what I could tell, the ticket sales were aligned with the later numbers that WrestleTix shared. So, John, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the numbers, but if you haven't, maybe we could do a little bit of a guessing game. Keep it interesting.
Sure, yeah, so, I actually haven't. I haven't really seen it.
Cool. So first, of course, we start with the highest number. So future guesses, it doesn't have to be higher than that. But Joey Janela's Spring Break, what do you got?
Probably 1,500, something like that.
So, right. So that's what it was really looking at. Like pre-show, WrestleTix had 1,409, but it ended up being 1,800.
Oh, okay.
So, and I asked Brett, did this end up being the most for a spring break, but he said spring break 2 did 2,400. I'm not sure if that was the year Gunther was there. But this year's edition, like, gained late momentum for Sabu's retirement match. Well, any number like that for an independent show is impressive. What do you think about this theory I have, John? I think, like, the collective nature of the collective dampens something like this. Like, you know, I'm not saying you would have sold out, 10,000 seat building, but I think maybe you could have sold out 2,200 seats or more, depending on where you were, if, like, you really focused on, Sabu in the moment. But, there was quite a while, as we talked about on the show leading up to it, it was unclear if Janela was going to be able to perform. Maybe the whole thing would be canceled. Sabu didn't appear for the Hall of Fame last year, and maybe people were questioning that. Do you think, like, Sabu's retirement, like, kind of got lost in the WrestleMania buzz?
Yeah, probably too. And to be honest, there's a little bit of the people or the fans out there that aren't necessarily believing it's his retirement. So that's a little bit of it as well, for sure.
Yeah, and with, of course, with the Sheik, his uncle, like, he basically wrestled till he died, right? He almost did die in the ring, unfortunately. But Brian Solomon, of course, covered that Sheik so well, and I didn't realize that he, not to go on a tangent, I didn't realize he was making so much money from Japan at the end, and it kind of helped to save his finances. I guess it makes sense, right? Like, why else would he go out there and, like, take those risks? But, as a wrestler, people are willing to do that. Okay, so that's spring break. Next, Bloodsport. What do you got for attendance?
1,200, probably, something like that.
Yeah, so I would say this is similar in that in advance, WrestleTix had a couple of days out 1,026 tickets, but it got some momentum and it finished with 1,500.
Not bad. All right.
Heels Have Eyes. So I'll give the WrestleTix pre-count, which is a couple of days before, 1,050.
Oh wow, I was only going to say maybe 1,000 or so. Okay.
Yeah, so this was 1,470.
Wow, good for them. Okay.
And to me, like, those are, like, the two breakout brands, which we've talked about. I mean, Heels Have Eyes, it has different ownership, firstly, and, like, Josh Burton, it's a collaboration with GCW, but, like, Heels Have Eyes, obviously, they're doing their thing, and we'll talk about musicians who own wrestling and so on. The Bloodsport one, I think, like, logistically, they could possibly do more, but we've talked about that and so on. So the other shows, I think, like, probably would be like a toss up. Like, what did they draw, right? So I'll just go through some of those quickly. Actually, let me open up as we're talking the WrestleTix email, because one of them actually clearly showed a huge gain. But 1 second. Okay, so final counts. Okay, so what did we talk about so far? Okay, so Defy, I had it, so that's basically the same. That's Brett's number 478. That's actually interesting because WrestleTix had it as 532, right? High Spot Super Show, Brett had it actually a little bit lower, 750. WrestleTix had it at 801. Barnett's Bloodsport, WrestleTix had it at 1446. Progress, I didn't ask Brett for, I'm not sure if I got that number from Brett, 550, but WrestleTix has it at 608. TJPW, this one is basically the same. WrestleTix 865, TJPW 876 from Brett. DDT, basically the same, 630, 674. Janelle's Spring Break, WrestleTix had a little bit lower, 1733. Heels Have Eyes, 1520, so basically the same. Big Gay Brunch, let's see. WrestleTix had it a little bit higher, 792. Brett, 752. GCW, TJPW, DDT. They WrestleTix had it higher, 648. Cluster Forever. I didn't get a number from Brett, I believe, on that, but WrestleTix had it 892. That's surprising that one picked up so much momentum, but it's like a unique audience, so late after night one. So doing the math here, especially looking at Brett's numbers and the numbers that I had from WrestleTix in advance. So the total at that point was 9,555. So my assumption was for the shows that I didn't have numbers, a little bit of a late ticket sales pickup. And even though Wednesday Dragon Gate did well relatively, and WWE ID did not, that like when you combine all those things together, I'm comfortable having it at 10,000 tickets sold or distributed, however you would think about it.
So what else was going on with this weekend?
Yeah, so now like thinking about GCW moving forward, because so much was the collective and pre-collective that was kind of like leaving everything else alone. So in terms of their LA show, which is next on May 3rd, so a little bit of a breather for them. Looking good for them. First 3 rows are sold out. Most of the stage is sold out. 10 or more in the 4th row and 10 or more GA, and then they'll probably add some more rows, of course, but looking pretty solid there. Hawthorne Theater in Portland, Oregon. I looked this up. It has a capacity of 550 in the main room. It's a standing only venue with a limited amount of seating in the loft. So in the loft, 6 seats are still available, as well as more than that in GA. So we'll end up seeing what that numbers looks like in Maryland, where they're in the MCW arena. Front row is almost sold out, but everything besides that is 10 or more tickets remaining. In Rochester, the front row is almost sold out, and the 3rd row is almost sold out. Balcony 10 or more. I guess people wanted to save $9 on tickets, so that's looking pretty good. But the thing that often I think about, at least, is is it time for GCW to go away from death matches? But some of their most popular shows are death matches. Like, John, we've been talking about this for a couple of years. Like Atlantic City, hasn't been doing that great for them. But the Tournament of Survival on June 7th, first 6 rows are sold out. Cage of Survival, it's always harder on the second day too. They've sold out the first couple of rows as well. So especially on that first day, it's really like a testament to, not moving too far away from death matches. On June 20th, they're supposed to be in Little Rock at the Hall. I haven't seen tickets go on sale for that, and I went to the Hall's website and I don't see it listed. So not saying that it won't be listed, but as of now, it won't. I don't see that listed. But some interesting events coming up. Of course, Coney Island is a little bit less than 90 days out as we're recording this, and just waiting for more information on that. And then I think they're in Anchorage all the way in October.
So as far as AAA is concerned, AAA is actually being purchased and acquired by WWE. What is going on here? This is insane.
Yeah, everyone is sort of sorting it out, but I think maybe even in both conversations with Dorian that we've had on the show, which were a couple of years ago at this point, there's always that sort of work here at WWE and so on, and kind of the feeling was that I'd have to go back to it, but sort of like that WWE like has their own way of doing things, and sometimes it doesn't always work out to collaborate. But I was certainly shocked at the news. Especially I want to look at it, from the U.S. perspective, of course. Like I can't talk about as much as Mexico, although of course we have a peripheral understanding. But interestingly, like in the U.S., Lucha Libre has long simmered as a form of, wrestling across the U.S., and Lucha Libre is its own thing. Like some people that would never like go to an independent wrestling show would go to a lucha show. They kind of see it differently. In fact, the New York Times published an article just last week called WRESTLEMANIA in Los Angeles. It's Lucha Mania. But outside of a brief and impressive run of shows by AAA in the early 90s, no companies capitalized fully on a lucha-centric product on a major scale. WWE and its parent company TKO are uniquely positioned to take AAA to new heights far outside Mexico. And here are my reasons why. Television and streaming rights have been a long sought-after goal of AAA. AAA is long contracted with large Spanish-language networks in the recent past, but it's worked out for short runs only. John, this is really interesting, and maybe I'm giving away the answer, but do you know what are the 8th and 9th most watched networks in the United States right now?
What, like Univision and whatever the other one might be?
Exactly. So
Spanish
Univision and Telemundo. So they both average about 1 million viewers in prime time. So think about like this. Like, yes, we know AAA has sort of floated through, CMLL has had some exposure and so on, but it's never really stuck. But let's say TKO comes to them with this. So the pitch would be Rey Mysterio presents Lucha Libre AAA.
Whoa.
Dom Mysterio will appear regularly, maybe even like in an alternate persona. What if he was like Black Tiger or something like that? How about Bad Bunny providing color commentary and featuring some of the highest production values in sports? That's like a huge game changer, right? So having a base on a big television network or streaming platform, which would cover the bulk of the cost, allows the company to then negotiate other rights worldwide, whether sold to Netflix in multiple markets or market by market. I don't see it as like necessarily like WWE only going to Netflix, like to provide them more content. I mean, I'm sure they'd be open to that, but they also like to be, right, we have on cable right now, over the air, you have streaming, but to have like a primary program on a Spanish language network, especially that's some of the biggest demographics in the US, that would be huge for the company. Next, bring premium event exposure in conjunction with some of the WWE's biggest brands and events. Of course, they already announced NXT's collaboration with Worlds Collide. How about a WrestleMania week show or two for AAA, right? They can really choke everyone else out. AAA also provides another brand that can be combined with the UFC or professional bull riding for multiple days, or shows purchased by local municipalities, a key element to TKO's recent business practices. For example, AAA is an easy supplement to UFC Noche. Apologies if I'm messing up the name. Celebrating Mexican Independence Day, which I think last year was sponsored by Saudi Arabia. While TKO is taking WWE off a marginally profitable touring grind, AAA may be well positioned for it. So, John, I think about like people often say like WWE is the ice capades or whatever. I actually see that coming to fruition with something like AAA. So, like developing a 2-hour stage show geared towards children with masks aplenty for sale could travel well in America's mid-sized theaters and arenas. With a rotating crew of stars, the promotion could tour regularly. Merchandising, the colorful masks and costumes have an appeal far outside of those that would likely attend a match. TKO could open up potential sales relationships with major retailers and even use brand influencers to wear the clothes. If positioned carefully, AAA would be an alternative style to wrestling, which obviously it already is on a smaller scale in the US, rather than a minor league version of WWE. While the WWE would always seek to pluck the most impressive talent to maximize them on bigger stage, care should be taken to make sure talent flows both ways. So next, and this is a really interesting thing that I don't completely claim to understand, but I wanted to share it. Philip is a Mexico-based sports and entertainment holding company, which has a significant relationship with Lucha Libre, primarily through its role in the acquisition of AAA by WWE. So actually what I'm reading now is I asked Grok to give me the information. What I was reading previously was an article that I wrote on my website. So here's a concise history of Philippe's relationship with AAA. Acquisition partnership with WWE. WWE announced a strategic acquisition in partnership with Philippe. This partnership deal marked Philippe's formal entry into a strategic collaboration with both AAA and WWE, aimed at securing the future of AAA and expanding its global reach. Philippe's chairman, Alberto Faja Cohn, and co-founder Hugo Lopez Velarde are prominently featured in the announcement alongside AAA's Peña and Roldan. Okay, so we got that. Strategic role and vision. The involvement is driven by its focus on propelling and revitalizing iconic sports and entertainment properties. The company aims to combine AAA's rich culture. Okay, so that's fine. So it doesn't give too much information about why AAA used a holding company to sort of like make this deal work. But that's something that hopefully we'll learn more about. Now, Dorian Roldan posted about completing something at Harvard, like management training or whatever. But the more important part is like, what did he have to say about this sale? We signed the most important transaction in history of the company. After many months of negotiations, analysis, tensions, sleepless nights, endless calls, we managed to close an alliance with WWE and Philippe that represents a new era for AAA, one that honors our legacy, but also dares to dream big, an era that seeks to take Mexican wrestling to the top of the global stage. None of this would have been possible without my mother, Maricela, the strongest woman I know, the one who's carried the weight of Antonia Peña's legacy. To my sister, Jessica, thank you for being a sensible, loving voice. To Arlette Arvisa Manzo, thank you for walking with me this year full of extremes. To my team, there are not enough words. They've carried the journey with me. They've given everything. This is triumph belongs to them. You're the backbone of your group, of the group. Thank you to everyone who's part of AAA. So, with all that being said, it was interesting with Vikingo saying there at the announcement that he will be at TNA Rebellion, which is really something that's booked by Master Republic. And we'll talk about Master Republic a little bit later. Now, in terms of what else is going on, this was really interesting from Sportskeeda. WWC, Puerto Rico's top promotion, is a historic organization owned by Carlos Colon. There have been discussions about a potential talent exchange between WWE and WWC.
Interesting. WWE is taking over the world, so to speak. It seems like trying to take over the world, maybe. Speaking of maybe taking over the world or attempting to there with wrestling. But what's going on in the world of TNA wrestling?
Yeah, of course, based on our thematic elements of TNA, they certainly need to have staff to do so. But I'm sure they're bringing in some more people, or they have the people that are working with the newest, highest levels of management. But first of all, before we move away fully from WrestleMania weekend, I'd seen reports about 1,600 for the show that TNA ran, which would make sense to me. Next Slammiversary, slowly chugging along here. 61 tickets since the last update as of my capture for this show. So we're within that 90-day window now. 2,626 with a current setup of 4,101. John, before we move away from prognostication for the evening, although maybe it'll come up again, what do you think are like the potentials for TNA in Belmont Park? A, just generally if things go along as they are, and B, like, what are the chances WWE sends someone, or maybe they get a hot feud going? Like, what will it take here?
I don't know. I think they could probably do maybe 4,000 if they do something with WWE, or maybe a mix in with NXT, or do some sort of like brand versus brand feud, if you will. Maybe they could do 5,000 or so. But I don't know. I feel like WWE should get involved with that and really try to pump it up, because it is kind of in their their neck of the woods there, Long Island, New York.
Yeah. Have you been to UBS yet?
No, I never have. I always wanted to go there, but I haven't been there.
Yeah, I just realized that the Metro North, which is convenient for me, there's like a connection now there. I don't think TNA is what's going to get me over there. I wouldn't mind dropping in at a TNA show like this if it was a little bit more convenient, but always cool to see new like major arenas. The LA show is interesting because no matter what, they've opened up their 200 level tier. So at some point, you could drop into the website, and WrestleTix caught this as well. Sometimes the 100 is still listed, but and then sometimes not, and then only the 200 is listed. On the floor, there's about 400 and something tickets, and just a few are remaining. A couple of, I think like 3 of the 5 were like the most expensive, and then a couple that were a little bit over $100. But I think it'll end up doing really well as a show. Moon Township, Pennsylvania, really the Pittsburgh area, UPMC Event Center. So June 20th, so a little bit early, but some tickets near the ring, some tickets just above, just off the ring. The risers moving along there. The Mullet Arena in Tempe, Arizona. June 6th, not bad. A fair amount of rows on certain sides of the ring gone. Pretty big venue. In Brampton, Ontario, I think that's the one to watch right now. That one is looking really good. Of course, sort of like a home market for Len Asper. Looking at TNA and their schedule again, just to review here. April 27th, TNA Rebellion in LA. May 1st and 2nd in Irvine, California. Irvine, there was nothing really to speak of ticket sales at the moment that was different than what we've talked about. May 23rd and 24th, Brampton, Ontario. Tempe, Arizona, June 6th and 7th. Moon Township, Pennsylvania, June 20th and 21st. And then, of course, Slammiversary on July 20th. So I think we pretty much, sometimes they'll throw something out there that will surprise, but that pretty much looks like the schedule that takes us all the way to post Independence Day.
Damn. Okay. Interesting. How about New Japan Pro Wrestling? How is Resurgence doing? How is everything in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling right now?
Yeah, I don't want to sound bleak, but if there's a resurgence, I don't see it, unfortunately. So,
Wow.
staying sharp here after 10 p.m. But Friday, May 9th, so at the time we're recording this, it's about 2 weeks out, 2 weeks in a day. So tickets distributed 1,354, a current setup of 3,721. Number of seats on the venue. I think this is an 8,000, 9,000 seat venue. So number of seats on the map, 6,525. Resurgence last year wasn't gangbusters, but it did do just under 3,000 tickets, which, New Japan in the U.S., I found the Tanahashi sales like relatively so impressive, but it's really struggle. And they have to think about, like, does this make sense? I know it's obviously a little bit closer from California to Japan, but, it doesn't seem like there's upward momentum. What, of course, does help them, whether it's straight rights free or a split of ticket sales, whatever it may be, is, of course, Forbidden Door at the O2 Arena in late August.
What's going on with like Tanahashi's retirement? Like, do you think, or I don't know, do you think that should give him a boost, or does that not necessarily give him a boost because he's like older and retiring, and you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword maybe a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, there should be. I don't know always the way that things are done in Japan, but like from the US, I think that definitely helped with the Chicago. But then you have that obviously a different market, and people aren't traveling as certainly as much to New Japan. I think it used to be a thing when they had a lot more buzz, and certainly pre AEW. But then you go into Ontario, maybe Tanahashi comes to do an appearance. I don't know what the commitments are in Japan at that time, but like, it's just like a piece off, another piece off the table, and you're sort of emphasizing it. I definitely do feel that, you should take advantage of, retirement, tours and so on. I think that's obviously, it's to a certain degree working really well for WWE, but just like from a few steps removed, I think, it's clear that New Japan has to like sort of figure things out and have like that new generation and so on. But that's a struggle for them. Do you think there's anything to like the rumors of like a sale to WWE, to AEW, or that just sort of like picked up from the AAA thing?
Probably picking up from the AAA thing, and maybe also because The Rock was wearing that New Japan shirt oddly on his Instagram. So I don't know. Like I feel like it's maybe just rumors or silliness from that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think like I wonder if The Rock is sort of like from the inside, like we're not hearing about it, but maybe there's like a lot of infighting with like Triple H, right? Triple H has Shawn Michaels and so on, and we know that history and the bumpiness there. And maybe he was like trolling Triple H by wearing the New Japan shirt. I don't want to like sound too much like a fanboy or whatever, but like, it does seem like there's some personality things going there. But I did forget about The Rock wearing the New Japan shirt. To me, the AAA deal has like so much more potential for maximizing, especially in the US, than New Japan. I think New Japan's audience is very limited, very hardcore, and I love it. But AAA has so much more potential appeal to a broad audience. I know sometimes people say full stops, but I don't like when people say that. But I'll say exclamation point.
No, yeah, no, I agree for sure. What is going on in the world of MLW though? What's going on with Major League Wrestling?
So it's interesting thematically, and we'll talk about their success in Chicago. But MLW is fusion and all of that, but really their success right now, or something that helps them stand out, is the ongoing access to CMLL. And when AAA hits big, will that sort of like dim the uniqueness of MLW in that way? And they're still very much trying to find their footing, perhaps outside of a string of sellouts that's been going on for a while. I don't want to sound like I'm questioning theirs more than any other promotions, but sometimes I do have questions. But like in terms of how the tickets are being distributed and all that sort of stuff, the setups and all the promotions do that, right? Like, what's a sellout, right? But Chicago is fairly successful. I've been following it a while. MLW announced its return to Chicago for Azteca Lucha. Cicero Stadium has officially sold out. In a stunning feat, the event sold out without a single match or talent announced, underscoring the unprecedented momentum MLW is experiencing. So May 10th, you didn't announce a single match. Okay. The people of Chicago have spoken. They've bought every ticket, and they don't even know what's coming. That's because MLW is not just a show, it's a movement, said Cesar Duran. Everyone wants in, even when they don't know what's coming. They just know it's going to be unforgettable. And I had it, that all the seats were sold, and then it was just GA available. And then, of course, a sellout followed. Nothing too much to talk about in terms of their other events, but in New York, Summer of the Beasts, obviously in Queens, smaller venue, they'll probably sell that out. Fightland back to Dallas on September 13th. That's slow going, but we're still a ways out. But of course, they seem to do shows on about a once a month clip. Maybe since June is June 26th, maybe it'll end up being just one show in August for MLW.
What is going on in the world of Masked Republic?
Yeah, so they have hi Kevin, but they have the shows that tacos and tequila and all that, and they've been making sure to emphasize all that. But the Mass Mania is really these were the first two shows beyond the pilot that they were getting out there, May 3rd and 4th. A particular reason, it says, due to circumstances beyond our control, the events have been canceled. Refunds are available. We look forward to playing future dates, but have to apply things fairly. The tickets, these were very big venues, and the ticket sales were very, very slow. So, you have that reality hitting. I think, like running like a Westchester County Center, something of that nature, like where you can have space to have like a screen of some size or like a setup and have like an interactive experience in the hallway or whatever it may be, that it's big enough. But like, it's very hard to draw several thousand people. And, there's that. And then obviously the timing with WWE purchasing AAA, I don't know. I don't think, I would just guess, it wasn't related, but obviously people looking at the timing and maybe certain talents where they can with AAA, they're like, let's like relax a little bit. Let's work into this here. These weren't AAA shows in the US, but Mass Republic has access to talent from AAA as part of things. But I'm sure we'll discuss more in depth and learn more with one of our favorite guests, Kevin Kleinrock, at some point in the future. I think it's probably a good idea for us to let things settle down a little bit from the AAA acquisition, so we can look at it sort of like with a landscape that's settled with Kevin.
What about musical artists as promoters? What is going on here? What did you do here?
Yeah, so when you think about standout independent wrestling promotions, a number of them are musicians that run. Obviously, Insane Clown Posse has a JCW forever. Billy Corgan, we know about the NWA. Master P, was it last night or next week that he's on AEW?
No, last night he was on.
Oh, it was last night. How,
yeah.
Was it without incident? No Eric Bischoff being threatened?
No. There was physicality like around him and stuff, but the way they played it off, I thought it was great. I really liked it. I'm like I don't know, just maybe a little bit of soft spot for Master P because of WCW, but I always liked him.
How many people like this hooty hoo sort of live in their brain,
I know. Yeah. Proud about it. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
He's definitely a bucket list guest for me. John, don't beat me to it. We have to do it together.
Yes. I've tried. I haven't been able to contact, but I've emailed a few times. Yeah.
Fair enough. I think you need that. I don't even know if like Amazing Red can sort of like. It's obviously up to Master P, like whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. But House of Glory has a lot of momentum now. But West Side Gun, who first time we talked about it, we were both sort of like who, but right. Heels have eyes, right? Like there's a lot going on there. No one like has broken out huge. Sometimes you think like, okay, it's like a famous person, they're wealthy to various degrees, and they like wrestling, so it'll make the wrestling promotion huge. I would say they're all firmly independent wrestling companies, but I ran a modestly responded to poll, but I do agree in terms of the winner, the results, that Which musicians that currently own a pro wrestling promotion have done the best job in charge? So very early, but Westside Gun 44%, Billy Corgan 22%, Master P 22%, ICP. This isn't my opinion, but 11%.
Now, what about you? Final, of course, topic here. What about you and BTZ, our buddy Brandon Thurston? What's going on with you and BTZ?
Yeah, especially for those listening on the various YouTube streams, because probably based on the consistent calendar with the podcast distribution, it will have taken place, but maybe we'll do it back again somewhere else. But be there in Buffalo, New York. So Western New Yorkers. I've been inviting people from the business that live up there. Wrestling with Education, Understanding Linda McMahon, April 30th at the University of Buffalo. It's free, no reservation required, at the Waldman Theater, 190 Norton Hall, with not only Brandon Thurston, but Brian Solomon as well on the panel. This time I'm not a moderator, I am a panelist, and we're going to be talking about Linda's history with Trump, with wrestling, what we're learning about her role with Department of Education, and it's 5:30 to 7 o'clock, April 30th, Waldman Theater, 190 Norton Hall, University of Buffalo. John, my first time in Buffalo. I'm taking the Amtrak, 7.5 hours each way, but I'll have my podcast, some books, and I'm planning to relax.
Wow, nice. I love it. You and BTZ and Solomon. What a crew you guys have there.
Yeah, Brandon just has to roll out of bed, or we're in his region.
True.
And last time I saw him was actually first and only time that we met each other in person was at a bagel shop in New York. So last time he was down here, I'll come up there, and next stop's the world.
Nice. All right. Let's wrap this bad boy up and hit the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power. What about you, Lavie?
Yes. So now that I'm finishing my doctoral degree, I had more time for writing. So LionCupJobSearch.com, that has the AAA breakdown. Also, the collective, working with a friend of the podcast that's relaunching a website. I'm expecting that article to drop soon related to the collective. Whenever you restart a website, got to get it going and so on. So hopefully that will be out there by the time you are listening to this. If it is, certainly it'll be shared widely via X. Follow me at LavieMarg, LavieMarg.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for tuning in. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. See you next.